Okay, friends, welcome to this wonderful event, IMC NCDEX webinar. This is, I guess, I suspect, for the first time in India this season, this webinar is going to take stock of the Kharif production prospects and would make a forecast of what the production is likely to be. I can't recall anyone else doing it. The government's own estimate would come probably by the end of this month. But we have taken note of the progress of the monsoon, the planted area, and the incidence of pest and disease attack, availability of inputs and all that. And we have come up with today, our own forecast of what the crop size is looking like. And in this, we are going to be covering rice, pulses, coarse cereals, oil seeds, and cotton in particular. But before we go into this, it is my pleasure to invite Mr. Ashish Barwale, Chairman of IMC Expert Committee on Agribusiness and Food Processing. Ashish is somebody who is well known in the agriculture circles. He represents a major input company called Mahiko, and who does not know Mahiko? And over the last 3 or 4 years, Ashish has been the chairman of the Agribusiness Committee of IMC Chamber, and we are making fantastic progress under his leadership. Ashish, my request: kindly deliver your chairman's welcome address to this audience.
Thank you, Mr. Chandrasekhar. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to extend to you all a hearty welcome to this webinar on the Kharif crop outlook for 2022-2023. This is a key annual event of the Chamber, and many of you may have attended similar events in the past years, and we're excited to present it again this year. This year, we are doing this in association with NCDEX in IPFT. As we all know, NCDEX is India's largest agri-derivatives exchange, and we're proud to have them as partners for this event. I think I don't need to mention this, but we all know that agriculture is one of the most important sectors in our economy, both from the standpoint of the economy, but as well as on the social side, because we know that more than 50% of India's population is employed in agriculture directly or indirectly. In addition to that, it contributes between 15 to 18% of our GDP. And that's why it's such an important sector to be talking about, to be concerned about. Developments in the farm sector impact many sectors of the economy. So the impact of agriculture is not just related directly to the people it employs, but also to other industries that are dependent on it. We know that linkages are present locally, regionally, nationally, and also internationally. Agriculture input and output prices have a bearing on rural incomes, because predominantly the population that is involved with agriculture does live in rural area, and has a significant impact on food inflation, something that impacts our economy and the poor part of our economy substantially. As we move into the second week of September, it's time again to review the monsoon situation, the Kharif season, which is our wet season or monsoon season in terms of the planting, and look at the various crops in terms of the area, in terms of the production, in terms of how we expect the output to be of the key crops. The monsoon is a significant factor for agriculture in India, because we are still dependent. More than 50% of our acreages, of our production, of our farming is dependent on the monsoon, and it has a significant impact on the acreages of the different crops, but also the production and the yield. So I'm really looking forward to an engaging discussion on what this year's monsoon means for the crops going forward, both in terms of availability and and pricing. Planting, of course, as we know, has concluded several weeks ago. Typically, we have plantings between July and August, June, July, and August. And it's harvest time for a lot of the crops now. So this is an ideal time for us to be talking about the prospects for production and prices. Despite various challenges such as high temperatures, varied monsoons in terms of timing and quantity, the overall fruit production in the last year was estimated at a record of 315 million tons. And this is as per the government's fourth estimate. But as we leave last year behind us, we must look forward to this year and see what this year has in store for us. There are, as we'll discuss, there are significant challenges that we see, especially with paddy, as a primary calorie provider for our population. And I look forward to discussions around how we can mitigate these risks in the next hour and a half or so. Our speakers will examine the issues, the trends that we have seen in terms of sowing production, in terms of how these impact our availability of food, and also how it impacts prices of these sensitive agri-commodities. So without much ado, I would like to introduce our speakers and welcome them. We are grateful for their participation, and we look forward to an engaging discussion. Today, we are joined by Ms. Rajni Panikar Lamba from Phillip Capital. She is a VP at Phillip Capital. Mr. Arun Yadav, the Senior Vice President at NCDX. And of course, our very own Mr. Chandrasekhar, Economic Advisor at IMC and Director of the IMC ERTF, who will help conduct the panel today. Before I go, I would briefly like to say a few words about the IMC. I know a lot of you are aware of what IMC does, but I think it's important to just talk a little bit about what we stand for and our background. So the IMC Chamber of Commerce and Industry is a premier chamber of commerce in the country and has a rich legacy of over 100 years of excellent service to trade, industry, and commerce. With its membership base of more than 5,000 and over 150 trade associations affiliated to it, the chamber represents and advocates the interests of over 400,000 businesses and industry establishments from across the country and across a very diverse sectors of industry and trade. Through its various expert committees, the IMC provides policy inputs for the government, both central and state, and is continually engaged in interaction with policymakers at various levels of government authorities. We organize interactive dialogues very similar to this, workshops, seminars, business conferences, and other activities where eminent business and government leaders engage with members on a wide range of issues to create conducive opinion and environment for sustained and sustainable economic growth. The Chamber is now a cradle for nurturing young talent. It promotes gender equality through the Young Leaders Forum and the IMC's Ladies Wing, which have become the embodiment for youth enterprise, positivism, proactive thought leadership, and movement for women empowerment and entrepreneurship. The theme for this year, which Mr. Anand Singhania, our president, has laid down, is partnering for growth. Thank you once again. A hearty welcome to all the participants, to our speakers. I look forward to a thought-provoking discussion and active participation of the group. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ashish, for this inspiring speech. Wonderful. Allow me just 1 minute to share screen, but Anita, you have to enable me. And in the meanwhile, I want to recognize the presence of some very dear friends and highly respected personalities. Dr. S.K. Goyal is with us. Our friend Dr. Patnaik is here. He has joined us. Angelo from the Brazilian embassy. I'm actually seeing his name here. We have my friend Parag Gadre has joined from ETG. They're all They're all very well-known names in the agribusiness ecosystem, and I'm sure there are, hi Parag, and I'm sure there are a lot more people who will join. So I'm just going to share screen. Here it is. Okay, let me share and straight away get into the topic. Okay. Um, so first, of course, as I said, it is IMC Chamber of Commerce and IMC NCDEX. So we are jointly doing this seminar. Importantly, I must mention, and I do it every time, IMC is a SEBI accredited training institution for commodity derivatives. And in that capacity, we do a very large number of events every month and every year. And we've been doing this for several years now. Now, I have actually authored a report on Kharif crop, and I've given my forecast, which I'll of course share with you. As Chairman Barwale mentioned just now, the 22-23 Kharif crops are ready for harvest, or they would soon be ready for harvest. And we will actually first examine the acreage planted, performance of the southwest monsoon, and the production prospects. We would cover rice, pulses, coarse cereals, oilseeds, and cotton. But before I go into that, let me allow me to share or make some observations. One, the onset and progress of the southwest monsoon in June was rather hesitant, but fortunately, I think the pace of monsoon picked up substantially in July, and that brought a big relief. But that also meant a slightly delayed beginning to planting of the Kharif crops. That's number one. Number two, the country, as all of us know, is divided into 36 meteorological subdivisions. Okay? As of the latest data available from the Government of India, 30 subdivisions have had normal to excess rainfall, but six subdivisions are still facing deficient rains. And these six subdivisions fall in Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Jharkhand, Gangetic, West Bengal. Okay, and then therefore we need to keep that in mind. In April 2022, that's about 4 or 5 months ago, the Ministry of Agriculture, when they were planning the Kharif campaign, considered that there will be some shortage of soybean seed, and to a lesser extent, there'll be a shortage of maize seed also. And I looked at the overall intensity of pest and disease attacks on the crop, which has remained well below the economic threshold level. But I must mention, there are reports and there is evidence of pest attack recorded in Punjab, in Haryana, and in Rajasthan. Okay, and this will have potential impact on cotton, maize, and bajra. Bajra is pearl millet. Okay, on these crop, it can potentially have an impact. And therefore, with these preliminary remarks, let me move down. Let me move down quickly to another slide. Sorry, I haven't put it in. I've just used as a Word document, but for me this is much easier. I want to show this on. I want to show this. This is important, primarily because see here. This the whole of Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, then you have Jharkhand and Gangetic West Bengal is still facing deficiency in rainfall. And this eastern part of India is critical for cereals, particularly rice. So kindly bear that in mind. And in other regions, we know either it is excess rainfall or it is normal rainfall. Okay, blue actually points to excess rainfall and green points to normal rainfall. But the most critical regions lie in the eastern parts of this country, which is UP, Bihar, Gangetic West Bengal, and Jharkhand. And these are very important, particularly for rice. Now I'm moving ahead. I'm going to be talking about Kharif crop planted area. Okay. This is for the year 22-23. The planting started in June, July, and the crops are ready for harvest. Now I've given rice 339. I'm not reading these numbers, but the first column is the 5-year average. This is the 5-year average of the planted area. The next one is planted area as of 9 September, based on the returns filed by the states, and which is disseminated and compiled and disseminated by the Ministry of Agriculture. And I've compared that with the final area for 2021, that is Kharif. 1 year ago, what was the area? Look at rice. As of 9 September, it is 39.4 million hectares, vis-a-vis 41.6 million hectares final acreage for last year, which means we are down at least 2.2 million hectares as far as rice is concerned. Pulses have also fallen short by close to 1 million hectares, actually 900,000 hectares. Coarse grains have just about maintained, although the 5-year average for coarse grains is 18.3 million hectares. Last year was 18 million, and this year also, as of 9th September, it is 18 million. Oil seeds like pulses have not fared so well. It is slightly above the 5-year average, but certainly 800,000 hectares below last year's level, oilseed planting. Cotton, 5-year average 12.6 million hectares. This year is 12.7 million hectares, and last year was 11.8. Yes, certainly there is a rebound in cotton area this year, but my sense is, when you look at the prices, cotton prices over the last 6 months, the kind of high elevated price levels that have prevailed, I would have expected cotton farmers in this country to go in for even bigger acreage. I would have expected actually 13 million hectares, but it has probably stopped at 12.7 million hectares. And therefore, I'm actually I'm wondering about supply response to prices. Do farmers actually respond with higher acreage based on market price? I think we need to do a lot more. We need a lot more empirical evidence that there will be supply response. The next we go to sugarcane. 4.74 million hectares, 5-year average. Last year, 5.47. This year, it is even higher, 5.56. And personally speaking, I'm not really comfortable with the expansion of acreage of sugarcane. After all, sugarcane is a water guzzler, and we are a country facing serious water shortage. I have actually argued that we need to actually cut down sugarcane acreage by at least 10%, especially in regions which are facing water shortage. But anyway, that's a political that's a decision which the government of India will have to take, and therefore this is the acreage number that I wish to share with you. I'm now going to the next next slide. It's not a slide. I'll just move on and then talk about I think I've covered very broadly whatever I wanted to say about this. The next one, let us look at the Ministry of Agriculture production target for major Kharif crops and my forecast and comparison with the fourth estimate for 21-22. The fourth estimate came sometime in August last month, and the targets were set as far as April 2022 this year for the Kharif harvest which we are facing. The targets are set by the government of India, as I said. Cotton will be in terms of bales, okay, of 370 kilograms. And this forecast is my own forecast, and I've done my own research to come up with this forecast. Now, look at target 22-23, forecast for 22-23, and 21-22 fourth estimate of the government of India. Rice, the government of India's target, production target is 112 million tons. Last year's fourth estimated 21-22 production at 111.8 million tons. This year, given the fact that UP, Bihar, Jharkhand, Gangetic West Bengal, these regions which are so important for rice are facing serious deficiency in rainfall. My own expectation, my estimate, my forecast of the crop size of rice is between 101 and 104 million tons, which means there could be at least 10% reduction in the production of rice from last year and also this year's target. Surprisingly, the government of India has already taken cognizance of this. The food secretary made a statement the day before yesterday. He says, yes, the government is concerned about lower rice production. And he also mentioned that it could be down by 10 million tons. And as a result, the non-basmati export, there are restrictions on non-basmati export in terms of an export duty. Okay, and therefore the government wants to regulate and actually in some way reduce export of non-basmati rice, which otherwise was free over the last probably so many years. Anyway, but this is the situation. But more important for me is this drop in rice production very quickly follows a drop in wheat production. April, May, June, we harvested the target for the government of India said the first estimate was 111 million tons of wheat. But even that time, I wrote a commentary early March, if I remember correctly, saying, I don't see the wheat crop beyond 100 million tons. In the second estimate, the government revised it down from 111 to 106 million tons of wheat. I still think it's closer to 100 million tons or even slightly lower. Okay, and therefore there are wheat crop is lower. Now rice crop is going to be lower, and that's going to tighten the availability of both the fine cereals, wheat and rice. Next, let us look at pulses. Very clearly, the production target for pulses this year is 10.5 million tons. My own forecast of pulses, Kharif pulses production is between 8 and 8.2 million tons. Last year, it was 8.4 million tons. I just want to mention one more thing. The first estimate of 21-22 was made in September, end September 21-22 by the government of India. At that time, they estimated the Kharif crop at 9.6 million tons of pulses. I immediately wrote a commentary saying that I don't see that crop at 9.6 million tons. I said it would at best be 8.4, 8.5 or 8.6 million tons. And I gave reasons why I said what I said. And very surprisingly, in the following estimate in February that the government announced, they actually reduced the crop size to 8.4 million tons. This year, sadly, I'm not seeing any growth at all, either in the acreage in pulses or even in production. I'm seeing some challenges actually for PGNP, Tuar or Arhar as we call, 3.8 to 4 million tons. Urad is again going to be far below the target, just about maximum 2 million tons. Moong also is going to be below the target, and we all know moong prices have risen. It's going to be at least 1 million tons lower than the target. And of course, others we also produce some small quantities of cowpea and horse gram, etc., under the others category, which is these are minor pulses. When we come to and therefore my sense is very clearly our pulses import, our dependence on import will continue. Okay, the coarse grains, I'm looking at the target for production is 40.6 million tons. My last year was 35.9 million tons, and my estimate for this year or my forecast for this year is between 34 and 35 million tons of coarse grains. And within that, I'm looking at Bajra, which has done well in terms of area. It has done, it has got expanded area. Bajra should do well. From last year, there is a possibility that our production could rise closer to 10 million tons. Maize, I'm finding there could be potentially a shortfall in maize production, again, primarily because of the dry conditions, deficiency of monsoon in the eastern parts of the country. Come to oil seeds. Yes, again, 26.9 million tons is the target. Last year was 23.9 million tons actual production, which is the estimate. Even here, I have my reservations about this 23.9 million tons production of last year. Sorry, but let's not get into that. For this year, for this Kharif 22-23, my forecast is oilseed production will be between 21.5 and 22.5 million tons. And if to give that breakup, groundnut will be between 7.8 and 8 million tons. Soy will be between 11.5 and 12 million tons. And in case of soy, we should know there was an admitted position of the government of India that there was a shortage of soybean seeds. So last year's production of soybean given by the Ministry of Agriculture was 13 million tons. I don't think it was actually 13 million tons. Last year it was at least 1 million tons lower. This time, therefore, this is my forecast is 11.5 to 12 million. And of course, other oil seeds like sesame and all that will account for that. Cotton is an interesting story. The target is 37 million bales. Last year's production was 31.2 million bales, although last year the production forecast by the trade started at something like 36 million bales, and they gradually reduced it to finally it stood at 31.2 million bales. This year, there is certainly some improvement in production, but it is certainly not 35 or 36 or 37 million bales. At least I'm absolutely not convinced that it is at that level. I would put the outside limit for cotton this year is 34.5 million bales, or it will range between 33.5 and 34.5 million bales. Sugarcane production target 415 million tons, and my estimate of cane output is 400 to 420 million tons versus last year's 432, which means it's going to be slightly lower. And my number is actually vindicated by the managing director of the sugar cooperative, my friend Prakash Naik Navre. His number is 410 million. Okay, therefore this is the situation. Now I want to I also have some more comments to make on this with your permission. Allow me just to check my notes. Come on, okay. I think I've by and large covered my commentary, but I just want to I want to talk about the fact that overall the harvest size of all major Kharif crop is said to be smaller, below the target and even below last year's level, except for cotton. The second point is weather risk in September and beyond. We cannot wish it away. We may have the southwest monsoon may get extended beyond September. Therefore, excess or extended rain beyond September, and there is already a forecast that in September we'll have heavy rains. That's the kind of Met Office forecast. And therefore, that can potentially affect not only the crop size, but also the quality of the crop. And as I said earlier, the Food Secretary has already conceded to lower rice crop. The government has taken it on board and therefore imposed restrictions on non-basmati rice export with export duty. Pulses, fortunately, there won't be a shortage in our country, primarily because pigeon pea, black mud pea, masoor import, all this is free until March 2020. And therefore, whatever is a shortage in our country, we will certainly import and obviously augment availability. In case of cotton, I expect the supply-demand fundamentals to remain quite tight because I expect some rebound in the activity by the user industry as far as cotton is concerned, and therefore the S&D is going to remain quite tight. The supply-demand fundamental. Oilseed, unfortunately, is the same old story. We are not making any progress at all, despite all the noises being made by both the policymakers and the trade and industry bodies. Nothing much is happening, unfortunately. And I have been arguing for a creative disruption. We are in a trap, and we need to get out of this trap, which calls for creative disruption. I have forwarded to the Government of India and for a presentation that was made to the Prime Minister on 7th of August. I provided a lot of inputs to the government on how to creatively disrupt the oilseeds and oil sector and move towards Atmanirbhar, which the government has been talking about. Therefore, with these numbers, I think we need to look at the implication for availability of food grains and fibers like cotton. We should look at what impact is going to have on prices, what impact is going to have on import and export trade. From an export perspective, for example, cotton exports, non-basmati rice exports are already somewhat restricted through export duty that we know. Import requirement of pulses, import requirement of edible oil, all that these crop forecasts will have an implication. And that also, and then we also have to look at the rupee, how it's going to behave. And therefore, all this, in my view, is going to create some kind of challenging times for the policymakers. With this, I will stop and I will invite our expert, Rajani Panikar, who's been tracking this sector for probably more than 2.5 decades, 3 decades. She will offer her expert comment. Rajani, the floor is yours. I'll stop sharing.
Thank you so much, sir. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, you are.
Thank you so much, sir, for this opportunity, and welcome to all the participants.
Yeah, Rajani, just one rejoinder. We are discussing only the crop prospects. I mean, for the benefit of all the participants, we are discussing only crop prospects. We are not discussing prices or price forecast. And I propose to do a price forecast event sometime later. So we will confine ourselves to crop forecast and the implication of this forecast for policy. Yes, Rajani.
Right. Thank you for that rejoinder. That's
yeah.
But I'm here in a slight dilemma.
No, that's okay. No, you go ahead and you speak what's on your mind. Yeah.
No, the fact is, whatever I wanted to speak, you've already covered.
Oh, Jesus.
So
yeah.
I know I'm going to make the presentation very short and brief because I don't want the participants to rehear what you very eloquently explained, and I'm sure I could not have done such a good job. But having said that, I will share a few slides re-emphasizing all of the factors that you discussed. So certain factors in terms of the impact of September rains, and then of course, our own forecast on what we think the crop could, the Kharif crop could be. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yes. Yeah, because your screen has frozen. So yeah, sorry. So, and our own forecast on the key Kharif crops, and finally, its impact on inflation, where we see inflation by March 2023. That's the brief index, if I may say, of what I wish to present. I shall just quickly share screen. Is it visible?
No.
Okay. You are screen sharing is what it says. Are you able to see?
No.
Okay, 1 minute. So let me just try stopping the video.
But is your file on the desktop?
Yes, it's very much. And
Is it open? No, is it open?
Yeah, it is.
And then did you
No, I
click
did
the green
share.
icon, share screen?
Yes, yes, of course, of course.
Okay. Did you go to that page then, to your desktop?
Yeah, it says you are screen sharing, but I don't know
Yeah.
why.
Yeah, but it's not showing, unfortunately.
Ma'am, you have to
But
do
maybe
it again.
maybe you should speak.
Close
Right?
close the window and you share it again.
Share it again. Yeah, correct. Yeah. Good
Okay,
idea.
1 minute. Resume share.
Exit
Stop
that
share.
screen
Yeah,
share.
let me just stop sharing.
Stop sharing. Yeah, that's
Sorry about this.
No,
And
it's
now
okay.
share. I've tried it again. Is it appearing?
No, no, ma'am.
Yes, you are. Wait, let me just stop again.
Or
Is it?
Rajni, just speak. No, you have it in front of you.
Yeah, I do have it in
Just
front.
speak. Yeah, of course. Unless you want to show some picture, I don't know, or graph.
Yeah, I had certain forecasts, which I don't know how I will
Yeah.
be. Or do you want the next speaker to speak? In the meantime, I can share this with Anita
Okay.
and then, yeah, we could do that.
I'm okay with that. Arun, are you ready? Arun, are you there?
Yes, sir. I'm there. Hi.
Yeah, Arun, can you,
Sure.
will you take off and that will allow Rajni some time?
Sure. So I do not have a presentation to make here,
Okay,
sir,
yeah, but please speak.
sure.
Whatever
Yeah.
you need to speak.
So,
And
so
all
I
of us
think,
know NCDEX is India's largest agri derivatives exchange. They have been doing a phenomenal job, but in recent months, the exchange is also facing some challenges in terms of suspension of a few contracts. What was the basis of that suspension? Nobody knows. But I believe there is a very strong case for lifting the suspension of the derivatives contract. After all, when the harvest is getting ready, how will the stakeholders be able to discover prices in the absence of a derivatives market? I think these are challenges, and I'm sure Arun is going to speak about all this. Yeah, go ahead, Arun.
yeah, thank you, sir. First of all, thanks for inviting me for this webinar, sir, and welcome all the participants. And I think there are two parts that I wanted to cover, but one of that you have covered in very detail. So I'll just take some time to discuss on that particular part, which is basically, which is also, the topic for today's webinar, which is like Kharif crop prospect. So if we look at this year's monsoon, especially, so it is in terms of rainfall, this is a normal monsoon if we look at as an entire country. But if we look at it state-wise, and you also talked about different meteorological geographical divisions, and you said 30 of them are have a normal or surplus rainfall, and there are 5 or 6 where there is a deficit. Now, if we further break it down in terms of states, so I think there has been a normal to I would say higher rainfall in especially in the western part of the country, and in western part of country, southern part of country. But the deficit has largely been in the states of UP, Bihar, Jharkhand, and West Bengal. And even in these states, if we look at the deficit within the state, so for example, in UP, 96% of the districts in the state have a deficit rainfall. Now, which is a serious issue because these states also contribute significantly to the overall Kharif production. And why to the overall Kharif production? Because they are a major producer of rice, which is almost 35-40% of the total Kharif production of the country. Now, if we look at the monsoon going ahead or the rains in the September month, So even in the September, what you also talked about, sir, is that the rainfall is looking, as far as the prediction goes, the rainfall is looking fine. Overall, we are looking at long-term average of around 110%. So 110% of long-term average, that is the estimate as of now. So there is a chance of normal to higher rainfall in the month of September. So the rainfall is going to remain normal. Now, one more important point, which kind of correlate to what you discussed earlier, is the deficit in the eastern part. So how is it really going to impact the overall crop prospect? So if you look at the vegetative growth of the crop as of now, we see that mostly the areas where there has been a normal rainfall, the vegetative growth also has been normal, and there has been some areas of concern coming out from say the eastern part of the country. But another major area that we have to look in, or I would say that the only silver lining in this situation is that these states have a quite significant area under under irrigation. So for example, if we talk about rice, so in UP almost 86% of the area is irrigated when it comes down to rice sowing. So yes, there is the irrigation facilities are available. So although a huge rainfall deficit is something that is going to impact the crop prospect, but yes, since there is an irrigation facility, so there are chances that the impact may not be as severe. Secondly, in Bihar also, the total irrigated part is almost around 72% when we talk about, say, rice only, and in West Bengal it is 52%. So compared to the average of country, I think these three states does have a better irrigation facility. So I think to some extent that will, if in the coming month also the monsoon remain on the lower side, definitely the irrigation facilities will to some extent reduce whatever impact we are going to see on the crop. So I think that is one part. So overall the monsoon has been normal, but there has been areas of concern within that normal monsoon, and that probably may continue in the months to come. Now, I think the second part of what I want to discuss about is basically, you also mentioned about the suspension of commodities. So a lot of, we have also as an exchange received a lot of representation coming from most of the trade bodies, farmers, FPOs, and almost everybody who is associated with the trade who want these, contracts back. And I think what we have also observed in last 1 year for few commodities like chana has been suspended around a year back, and the oilseeds have been suspended, mustard in October, and rest of the commodities in the month of December. So what we have observed is that the prices of these commodities, especially the oilseed, because we are a price taker, if we look at especially the edible oil segment, we import more than 50% of our oil requirement. So we are basically a price taker. And since December, what we have seen is that in the next 3 months, that is up to March, we have seen a continuous rally in the prices. So prices of most of the edible oils have risen by almost around 25 to 30%. And I think similar has been the case in in oil seeds also, especially soybean, where we have seen a price rally since December when the contract was suspended till March. And now when the new harvest is coming in soybean, if we compare the crop, the crop seems comparable to what it was last year. So as of now, the sowing figures are almost the same what it was last year. So we can expect the crop to be nearby to what it was last year. And in last 2 months, what we have witnessed, there has been a huge fall in the prices of soybean. So soybean prices, which were trading somewhere around 7,500, 7,600 around 2 months back, are now trading around 5,000 to 5,500 rupees. So there has been a looking at the prospect of the crop, looking at the situation where a new crop is going to come, we have witnessed a fall in the prices. Now, what would have happened if futures contract were there? I think this is one of the thing that we are, why we are getting a lot of representation from FPOs also. And most of them have said that in case futures were available, we would be in a position to manage this price risk, because by the time the crop will arrive, you might see further price fall depending on how it behaves, how the crop actually remains. So I think availability of futures contract would have definitely helped those FPOs, those farmers, to manage their price risk. On the other hand, if we look at from the industry perspective, a lot of what we have learned from the industry representatives, industry participants themselves, is that a lot of forward trade for soya meal used to happen during these months. And this year, those forward trades are significantly lesser than what they used to be when futures contract were there. One reason being that future definitely gives you an indication about what are the prices or the expected prices in the arrival month. And I think in a situation when the futures contract were not available, it is difficult to understand or predict the prices going forward. So I think the industry as well as the FPOs or the supplier as well as the buyer side of the crop, both are in a way impacted by not availability of futures contract. In fact, almost 450 FPOs have linked with the exchange in last 5 to 6 years, and they are utilizing and they represent almost around more than 1 million farmers, and they are utilizing the futures contract or the derivatives contract for their price risk management. So I think it's a wonderful tool. It is not available as of now. You have also already mentioned that, sir, that the reason we don't know why it is not available, but of course we are also getting a lot of representation from all the trade participants, and I think hopefully a decision will be taken in due course of time whenever it is there in terms of bringing these contracts back. So I think these are two areas that I wanted to touch upon, sir. Yeah, so that's all from my side.
Thank you, Arun, for this very interesting sharing of thoughts. Is Rajni ready yet, or?
Yes, I have shared my PPT with Anita, so she's going to share, and I'm going to coordinate with
Anita, are you ready?
Yeah, cool. Can you just, this is a PDF, Anita, so just expand it. Okay.
So Rajni, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you so much. Anita, is it possible to just expand the screen? Just go to the right-hand side and just expand it. Anyways, it's okay. It's okay, Anita. Like I said, certain screens I would like to skip because Chandrasekhar sir has already covered it very well as to what has been the performance so far. So largely, of course, June rainfalls. Just to summarize, with the apologies of having to repeat, but just so that it sets the flow. So the performance of Southwest monsoon, well documented so far. It is above normal, about 5% above normal, but that is just half the story. The spatial distribution remains a concern, especially for the east, northeast, and northwest regions, and that, of course, will have its implications on Kharif productions because north and northeast, as has been repeated many times, is a critical area for Kharif crop, especially rice. Anita, next slide. This is something that I wanted to discuss about, which was definitely touched upon by Chandrasekhar sir as well. The monsoon outlook for September. We've all seen the story so far. Just taking a look forward, we are, of course, on 12th of September, but September, October, very critical months because this is where harvesting begins or the yield development is more or less complete. Excess rains during this time has created havoc on many crops, oilseeds, cotton, which has been the precedence over the last couple of years, and it remains a concern this year as well. Specifically, what I'm referring to here is a forecast from World Weather Inc. It is a US-based weather forecasting agency, an agency that we have been following for many, many years. They have very timely given us updates on when weather red flags can be expected, and therefore, this year, they are talking about September being a month where it is going to be the wetness bias is much high for India, and it remains very strong for the month of September. Therefore, I have highlighted where the concern areas could be. If this forecast turns out to be true, then oilseeds such as soybeans, pulses, moong, urad, coarse cereals, maize, fibers such as cotton could potentially witness a decline in yields because of waterlogged fields. So we've all discussed how the southwest monsoon has been so far, but we're still not out of the woods because September also shows that there could be above normal rainfall. That's something that needs monitoring and something that will be keenly watched over the next few weeks. Yeah, Anita, next slide. This, of course, is a summary again on the Kharif crops and the moisture requirements. As you can see, the months of October, November, December are the ones when harvest begins. In 2022, June saw about 8% below normal. So during the months of May, June, July, when you require additional rainfalls, we saw a slow start. And that has definitely had an impact on acreage, on the tenure of how long duration crops could be sown. And now into September, October, November, as we require very less rains, we are seeing forecasts of excess rains coming. So this has been a summary of this year's southwest monsoon. Of course, we've had normal monsoon, above normal monsoons, but there are patches of concern, and this therefore will have its implication on Kharif crop, which therefore brings me to, Anita, the next slide, please. On the Kharif acreage trends, given this kind of a monsoon phase that we've had, we quickly compare the Kharif crop acreage of 2022 and the acreage in 2021. So when it comes to Kharif crops, there are three main factors that actually determine acreage. One, of course, is the rainfall. The second is, of course, the price that the farmers got for their crop in the previous year. And of course, finally, the MSP that is announced by the government. Peculiarly, what we are seeing this year is that despite very good prices for most crops last season, as we all have witnessed high agri prices last year, the acreage unfortunately has not seen that jump for the reasons we've discussed, which is that the rainfall was not nearly ideal. The spatial distribution did not meet it did not give the farmers the push or to completely monetize or make good the higher prices that was witnessed for crops last year. And therefore, if you see for Kharif, the total acreage vis-a-vis last year is down about 2%. It follows the same trend as a year ago. And despite higher prices, it's in year 2022, it's the rainfall patterns that has taken importance, and therefore reduced acreage across, as the table shows, for rice, for pulses, for oil seeds, because in oil seeds, we have seen a shift of groundnut towards cotton, which was a price concern, and of course, also because of Gujarat rainfall not being as ideal. So this is a trend which we wanted to highlight for the year 2022, that acreage has not been able to expand despite the good prices of crops seen all over last year. And that, of course, is the direct implication of the not so favorable spatial distribution of monsoons this year. A lot has been already discussed on its implication that it will have on rice, on pulses. I therefore would like to skip to my next slide, where we are attempting to give a forecast. This, of course, has been very well covered by Chandrasekhar sir, clearly showing the table that I have put is the table that Chandrasekhar sir also had, which is basically a bifurcation of the Kharif oilseed acreage as of September 2nd. So for rice, nearly 52% of the area lies in the northeast, the northwestern regions, which has seen below normal rainfall, remains a concern. For pulses and oil seeds, again, below normal rainfall in Rajasthan, excess rainfall in central India, and of course, forecast for very good or above normal rains in September remains a concern, and therefore it requires monitoring. Having put all this, Anita, next slide, please. Having put all this into perspective, what do we feel could be Kharif 2022 estimates. Definitely, we also see a decline in rice production compared to 112 million tons. We also expect production to come to about 106, 107, perhaps a bit higher than Chandrasekhar sir, but that's where we feel the rice production could be. Coarse cereals, we are looking at 1 million tons lower. Pulses, about 500,000 to about the same as last year. All this under the assumption that the September and the October rainfall does not turn out to be the worst. In cotton, we are a bit higher because we feel that the weather so far has been excellent, and we are looking at 36 million to 37 million, which is about 360 lakhs to 370 lakh bales, compared to the crop that is ended the previous years, 31.5 million bales. When it comes to oilseeds, this is where there is a major difference in the estimates that I would like to put forward and what Chandrasekhar sir said, because I have gone for 21-22 also with industry estimates. And as is common knowledge for people who are clued on, and for perhaps the unawares, there's a huge gap between the government estimates for oilseeds for most crops, but oilseeds is a sector I track very closely, and therefore I go with our As Philip commodity research estimates, which puts the crop of last year at 17.5 million tons. And I have also put the bifurcation because we had last year a groundnut crop of about 6.7 million tons, soybeans of 10.5 million tons, nowhere close to 13 million tons that the government is putting, and the other oil seeds at about 0.3 million tons. So break that to this year, given the fact that acreage has been more or less same for oil seeds except for groundnut. We believe that the groundnut crop could be around 10% lower, so it's about 6 million. Soybeans around 12 million tons. Again, with the disclaimer that September-October rainfall does not turn out to be for the worst, and the other oil seeds to be around the same as last year. In summary, rice production lower, coarse cereals lower, pulses more or less same as last year, cotton higher, oil seeds also 1 million tons higher. So this is in a nutshell what we feel the estimates would be. At the expense of repeating it again, the assumption being here that the September-October rainfall is normal. Which brings us to our estimate. Anita, the next slide, please. On what we think could be a very closely monitored number by government, by industry participants, by investors globally as well as in India, which is India CPI and food inflation. So currently for the month of July, India CPI is 6.7%. The food and beverage component of that is about 8.1%. We believe that by August, which is where the the old Kharif season, the old crop season comes to an end, and new crop arrivals start from October onwards. So we believe that inflation could peak in August at about 7.1, which is our estimate for what the August CPI could be. And then towards October, it could taper down to about 6.3, gradually increase in January. But by March of next year, we are expecting CPI at 5.6, which should be below the government's target level of 6%. We believe that food inflation will come down because Kharif production is more or less normal compared to last year, with the exception for, of course, rice. But on the oilseed side or on the pulses side, we are expecting a stabilization, plus the stocks of pulses that the government has, plus the number of measures that the government has introduced in terms of imports and export duties, whether it comes to edible oil, where they've extended subsidies all the way till March of 2023, the same for pulses. Plus there is on the edible side a softening of global edible oil prices. A combination of all this and the lower base price, the higher base price, I'm sorry, we expect inflation to taper down. So I would like to therefore end my presentation on a positive note that we could perhaps be more or less stopping on the inflation numbers, and we could expect a decline in inflation towards March 2023, largely because Kharif production may not disappoint. There is a lower trend, but there is a whole lot of combination of policies that the government is implemented, is rolling out, which should put a cap on prices. So that's where I would like to end my presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rajni, for this wonderful analysis. Very well, you took all of us through this very well. Thanks. The one or two things are very clear. When we discuss monsoon and crops, we all talk about the total quantum of rainfall, which is important, of course, whether we are in the positive territory or negative territory at the end of the monsoon season. But more critical, and all of us know, people, those who track all this would know that what is more important is the spatial and temporal distribution. How the rains have got distributed June, July, August, and September, and of course across the country, all the geographies within the country. Therefore, spatial and temporal distribution of rainfall is important. This year, unfortunately, June was a dry month, substantially dry month, ended in negative territory. July, we had excellent cloud burst in different parts of the country, and in some areas faced actually excess rains. And August, of course, is the same case. Yet, UP, Bihar, and Gangetic West Bengal, they're all facing still, even now, deficient rainfall. All this is going to have an impact on production. Fine, I agree that one or two other specific points that I want to talk about, which I'm sure Rajni also alluded to. In case of pulses, obviously the import policy is kept open until March 2023. In addition, NAFED, which is the government procurement agency, has 30 lakh tons of pulses, which is in stocks, in inventory, and a substantial part of that is chana, okay, which is desi chickpea, and that chana will be soon and gradually, hopefully gradually, be unloaded in the market. And I don't think there'll be free distribution, but most likely it will be sold at a highly subsidized price for vulnerable consumers. In case of cotton, at least I am not able to persuade myself into looking at something like 370 lakh bale. I don't see it there, my view, of course, but and therefore we need to caution. It is important for the user industry to take cognizance of the emerging tightness in domestic availability of cotton, and if the weather stays benign the whole of September and possibly into the early October, then of course the crop conditions will stay as they are. But if we have extended rainfall, that can potentially damage the crop size and also the quality. And then therefore the user industry must take, the cotton user industry must take all this on board. I expect cotton imports into the country to actually increase, but global rates are also going to stay high because of drought-like conditions in the US, in Texas, and other areas. Sugar cane, of course, we'll have good production of sugar. Over the last 3, 4, 5 years, we've had reasonably good production of sugar. There used to be, sugar production used to be of a cyclical nature. Hopefully, we have broken that cycle, and therefore sugar availability. We'll have surplus sugar produced in our country. There'll be comfortable availability of sugar. Possibly, we'll be exporting sugar to the international market, and therefore the purpose of this is to take stock of the emerging situation, take stock of evaluate the crop prospects and put a number or put a range of production. There is absolutely no intention to raise an alarm or create any kind of panic in the market. Production is not going to be substantially lower than what it was last year, except of course for rice. Yes, rice will be a matter of concern, and that concern has already been recognized. The government has taken on board and recognized that there will be lower rice crop. Hopefully, we'll make up a part of that loss in Kharif from the upcoming Rabi harvest, and therefore, what is also important is whether farmers are going to get a good price and whether they are going to stay motivated. I want to mention to this audience that on the 22nd of this month, we at the IMC are doing another event called 3Cs and Inflation Outlook. We will be looking at crops, we look at crude oil, we look at currency. 3Cs and inflation outlook, and therefore my request is, I'm sure all of you will get communication from IMC. You all can join that conference also. If there are any questions, kindly post them in the chat box. We will try and respond. I am not sure, Arun, you have anything more to add beyond what you said? Arun Yadav?
Yeah, am I audible, sir?
Yeah, sure, please.
Yeah, thank you. So I think only, sir, what I discuss about is largely, I think, just a couple of things on that line only is like, availability of or requirement of the derivatives market. I think that line only I would like to add a couple of more things. And I think,
please.
What we have also observed over a period of time is that futures has played a key role. And I think if we look at last 5-6 years, what we have seen is that even from the volatility front, at least last year was an exception. And that was, it is not only say in agri commodities or in a particular asset class that we have seen a high volatility. The volatility has been higher across the asset classes. So whether it is agriculture commodities, non-agriculture commodities, equities, we have seen a major volatility driven price movement and high volatility during last 1 year. But I think last couple of months, what we have seen is that volatility has subsided in almost all the asset classes. And I think you have also mentioned, and I think Rajni has also covered to a large extent, is that the inflation has also started coming down, mainly because we have seen the prices of crude oil or the edible oil both correcting from their highs. So I think the inflation has come down since then. And again, a lot of questions keeps on coming on the whether the futures market brings volatility or volatility is a function of market. So I think what we have also observed, and we have done a lot of research in last 1 year, because last 1 year gave us some time to kind of also introspect. So what we have also done is that we have done a lot of research to analyze how the volatility has remained, during the time when futures are there or during the time when futures are not there. And most of the time, what we have observed is that volatility is usually the inherent function of that particular asset class or that commodity. So just to give an example to everybody present here is that Tur and Urad were two contracts which were in the pulses complex. Those were two contracts which were trading into the futures market till 2007-8. Now, among the pulses complex, if we look the volatility chart, or if we look at the volatility, we will find that China is the least volatile. And China is one of the commodities that has been available in futures market, almost since last 20 years, right? And the volatility figures of Tur and Urad, there has been no change in the volatility figure. Even before the contract was there, and even in last 10-15 years, we have seen the volatility ranging from say 35 to 40% in both the commodities. So it is basically the inherent nature of that commodity which brings in the volatility. I mean, it being on the exchange, not being on the exchange doesn't make much of a difference, right? Secondly, what we have also observed is that in most of the commodities, as I also mentioned, is that last year has been an exception. Otherwise, the volatility has remained more or less similar, what it has been on a long-term basis, what it has been in say last 5 years, 7 years, or 10 years. So volatility is an inherent function of the market, of that commodity, or of that asset class. And secondly, I think the futures market are important. And I think this is something that we are also getting a lot of inputs from the market, is that without futures market, it has become difficult to ascertain the market in a way that, to look at something to kind of know whether the trade I'm doing is correct or not. So it is very important to have a price indicator, because before I, in today's time, when I'm entering into a trade, I need to have some reference, right? And I think it acts as a reference. So I think that is another point why I think any derivatives market plays a very, very critical role. And I think the third is the risk management. So I think we have all seen how, initially the prices went up. And in last 2-3 months, when the prices have started correcting, I think almost everyone in the value chain has been hit, especially those who are holding the stock because of, their maybe their processes or whatever inventory they are carrying. It becomes very risky to trade without having a risk management tool. So I think our efforts from NCDEX is also to kind of educate market about why these markets are important. And I think the market is also realizing this fact, why these markets are important. So I think which is also coming out from the kind of inputs that we are getting from the market regarding the commodities which are not available. They are all keen to get those commodities back. And I think a lot of associations, a lot of farmer groups, a lot of FPOs, they have all reached out to us and the regulator directly also, in terms of that, they want to have something to kind of manage their prices. They want something to have a fair price discovery. They want something to have a reference price. So I think that's really something that we are also looking at. And I think we are also very pleased this time that all sections of the market are of the view that the futures market are needed for the betterment of the entire industry.
Thank you, Arun, for arguing your case so well, so effectively. Our sympathies are with you, and I hope the policymakers heed your recommendation and lift this suspension soon. Friends, if you have any questions, please post them in the chat box. Identify yourself and post them in the chat box. But in the meanwhile, I was wondering if Dr. Sudhir Goyal has any comments to make. Dr. Saab, any quick comments that you would have? Okay, I think it's probably not there, but that's fine. Dr. Patnaik? Dr. Patnaik, are you there?
No, sir.
Dr. Patnaik, are you there? Okay, all right. I think there are already a few questions in the chat box. One second. Will import of rice hamper food stocks in India? I personally don't see the opportunity for no, I think, let's go. What are the stocks available with NAFED? We have about 3 million tons or 30 lakh tons of various pulses stock, various pulses, of which about 25 lakhs or 2.5 million tons will be chana. And the chana will be unloaded gradually in the coming months in order to augment availability and, of course, control prices. Will import of rice hamper food stocks in India? I personally don't believe India will be required to import. I actually rule out at this point of time any import of rice into our country. We are also large exporters of rice. We export more than 10 million tons of non-basmati rice, and obviously there are now restrictions in terms of export duty on non-basmati rice export, and therefore I don't see any need for import of rice in a deficit situation while considering irrigation for the paddy areas. Which crops are expected to get affected? In UP, western parts of UP have irrigation facility. The eastern part does not have adequate irrigation facility. West Bengal does not have enough irrigation facility. Parts of Bihar have this facility, but my expectation is that rice is certainly going to be affected. your coarse grains, especially maize, in these regions, in the eastern region, is going to be affected. These are two major crops that are likely to be affected, and I have mentioned that in my presentation. As inflation is reducing, when will the ban be removed on the products of trading? Well, inflation is actually kind of moderating. I don't see any great evidence of a sharp decline in inflation, but it is not rising any further. Whether it will rise any further in the coming months, at least I have no clue as of now. I haven't researched that area because even at $90 a barrel Brent, it is still quite expensive under Indian conditions, with the rupee at close to 80. And therefore, while food availability will stand augmented because of harvest, Kharif crop harvest, I don't see any significant or major correction in the inflation numbers anytime soon. We'll have to wait and watch. And of course, the rainfall during September and October will also be quite critical. But keep inflation aside for a moment. There is a strong case to revive, to lift the suspension and revive the suspension, revive the futures contracts in oil seeds and pulses, etc. It has not served any purpose. The value chain participants are still struggling to get benchmark prices, and therefore, inflation or no inflation, I think we need the revival of this market and reinstatement of the futures contract. I'm not sure if there are any more questions. Yes, Garib Kalyan Yojana is ending this month. Or will it be extended? My sense, I don't know if I should give a political answer. My sense is that it is most unlikely to be extended, and possibly in this there will be a rethink as far as PMGKAY is concerned, the Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana. There'll be a rethink. We don't know what is likely to happen. The government will review the Kharif crop prospects. The government's own crop estimates will come out before the end of this month. I don't know what those numbers are going to be, but I have found usually the numbers are slightly overstated to start with, and the second and third estimate, they actually they make corrections and then bring that number down, like it happened in pulses last year, 21 crop, like it happened in case of wheat, and therefore we know these things happen. Or let the government come up with its own with its numbers. We'll obviously offer our comments on those numbers, but the decision on the distribution under the PMGKY will be taken by the government. They look at all the aspects, and I'm sure they'll also seek inputs from the people, inputs from experts, and then they will take all that on board. Therefore, I think it is a little premature for us to speculate whether the government will extend it or not. There could also be political compulsions to extend this. Therefore, I think we need to wait and watch. With this, I think we need to bring this discussion to a close, because we can go on for some more time. Rajni, you have any closing remarks that you want to make? Similarly, Arun, if you have any closing remarks to make.
Well, the closing remarks would be, of course, that we need to monitor
Yes.
the September and October rainfall, which is what is going to give certainty to the forecasts that we have attempted. I think we still have a bit of the southwest monsoon yet to go. Pretty critical. Hopefully, we all hope for the best, because we definitely need a
Yeah,
good
yeah.
Kharif production. So he was
Alright.
hoping for the best,
Okay.
but eyes on the radar, and we need to keep monitoring.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Rajni. Arun, any closing remarks from your side?
So I think I would like to add to what Rajni has said is that, the month of September remains quite crucial. And if you look at earlier years also, at least last 2 years, we have seen
Yeah.
that due
Extended
to
monsoon.
extended monsoon,
Yep, yep.
and
I
that
agree.
has definitely impacted at least few of the crops, especially
Correct.
soybean.
And
Yeah.
cotton,
So I
and
think
cotton.
the rains are this year, and cotton also last year.
Of
Yeah.
course.
So I think this year again, what we are looking at as of now is that we are looking at a higher than normal rainfall in the month of September. So I think we have to keep our fingers crossed. As of now, for most of the commodities, what I understand is that except paddy and couple of more, I think the overall, at least the crop as of now seems fine. But I think September would be a crucial thing to look at. And I think secondly, of course, I think the industry requires the prices management tool. So I think that is a very, very important need of the industry. So I think, yeah. So I think these are
For
2 points I
me,
make.
what is important, yeah, year after year is some growth in production, incremental production. That is not coming. Even last year itself, there wasn't any significant growth from the previous year. And this year, at least in my forecast, the production is going to be even slightly lower than last year's fairly low production. So we'll have to wait, watch, manage, but it's going to pose some kind of a challenge for policymakers. I've no doubt at all. Therefore, with this, I want to thank panelists Rajni for her expert comments, Arun Yadav from NCDEX for sharing his thoughts and concerns. I want to thank all the participants for staying with us till the end of this event. I must certainly thank IMC's Anita Naik for so ably managing the show, and the IT team of IMC. And I want to thank, of course, Ashish Barwale, Chairman of the IMC Expert Committee on Food Processing and Agribusiness. We have more events coming up this month. As I mentioned, 22nd of September, we have an inflation outlook event where we will look at crude, crops, and currency, inflation, and 3 Cs. Do join us. That will also be a very, very interesting event. It will be online. And with this, let me thank all of you once again. Take leave of you. Good luck. God bless you all. Stay safe until we meet again soon. Take care. Bye.
Thank you.